Now, the Global Gender Summit is a platform where diverse champions of gender equality come together in discussion on how to empower women and girls to amplify their voices in the society. The summit is taking place in Africa for the first time in Kiagali, Rwanda. Our Rwanda-based correspondent Adrian Kowi had a discussion with the Care International Rwanda's Advocacy and Communication managers about the summit. Take a look.
For the first time, the Global Gender Summit is taking place in Africa, and Care International is one of the organizers of this summit, which is taking place under the theme Unpacking Constraints to Gender Equality. With me right here is Olive Maria, who is in charge of advocacy of Care Rwanda. Thank you very much, Olive, for joining me.
Thank you.
Now, I just want you to talk to me about some of those matters. I mean, we can see that men are joining in the conversation of gender equality, empowering women, and making sure that there's that balance. You know, so what are those things that women are doing or should do to make sure that as this opportunity is open for them, they are prepared and ready to take them?
Well, first of all, I think there's a lot that women are doing. So women are really building up businesses. Women are approaching microfinance institutions to ask for loans. So women are doing a lot in their communities. They are building communities, they are empowering people, they are employing people, they are creating jobs. So women are already doing a lot, both to empower themselves, their families, and the community at large. But we also need to acknowledge that there's a lot that still needs to be done, particularly having an enabling environment, having policies and laws that are conducive to women. When we talk about access to finance and being included as a woman, particularly women living in rural areas, it's important to understand that so many of these might not have the information on how to access a loan in a bank, or some of the banks might not have the products that are suitable for women, especially women living in rural areas or the poorest of the poorest in our communities. So it's important that although women are doing a lot, we also need to create the safe space and the enabling environment for them to thrive and ensure that their businesses are thriving.
Amazing. Now, mentioning the rural areas, there's this fight, you know, against patriarchy, trying to make sure that there's that balance. What are we doing to make sure that they are aware of this and so that they can also join in the fight? Because society, most of them, you find that most ladies actually, even in the urban areas, promote patriarchy. They have made themselves comfortable in the system. What are we doing to make sure that they are woke?
I think it's important to understand that both women and men alike are a product of society. None of us was raised out of this system that we call patriarchy. So at the end of the day, I feel there is a lot that a lot of organizations, women's rights movements are doing to help women really understand what kind of power do you have within yourself to resist violence, but also to understand that you have rights, you have a voice to raise. So it's important that as we are raising our children and our young girls and boys, we appreciate a lot of men that are our allies in terms of ensuring that they are understanding gender, but they are also promoting positive outlook around gender issues. But at the end of the day, we still have a long way to go. We know that there are so many women who are living in violence, women who don't have access to the opportunities that are out there, and simply because they don't have the capacities, the power within to understand that you have the voice, you matter. It can be possible. So I feel both in the city, in the rural areas, we are doing a lot as civil society, as women's rights organizations, to really promote driven women who are driven by their own needs and who are driven by what they see in their communities, and being able to challenge patriarchy, but also negative sociocultural norms that often hinder them from advancing.
Amazing. Now, before I let you go, there's this school of thought, especially in men, that believe, you know, the gender equality fight is a fight against men and their powers. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I think that's completely untrue. We know that for thousands of years, we've had culture and religion and traditions really discriminating against women. So what we are really trying to help understand is that there is that imbalance that is already there. As much as we see women occupying positions, for example, in Rwanda, we have women in the highest offices doing very well, but we still know that a lot of women, particularly those ones who are marginalized, still do not understand what this is about. And most of the time, they are held back by their husbands, their spouses, their brothers and fathers, who often say, you cannot do this, you can't do that, because we still know that men are the decision makers and the power holders in most of our communities and society. So it's important that as we bring men on board, this is about a fight together. It's about working together, because at the end of the day, women are not only benefiting from development and equality. Both men and women benefit alike. Yeah.
Amazing. Now, finally, there's this movement. I don't know if I should call it a movement, but women have created small groups, mostly in different countries. You find that they create these groups where they lend each other money, they go around a circle, most people call it chama in Kenya, but they're saving groups somehow. What are those things? We can see banks already also coming in to make sure that they have those circle loans and everything. But what is it particularly that the government can do to make sure that this kind of things are promoted and maybe even transformed into something bigger?
Yeah, we know that saving groups around the world, there are millions of them in Asia, across Africa, here in Rwanda as well. And we know that the Ministry of Finance and other organizations are really promoting these kinds of saving groups, because they have the power behind the numbers. And these groups most of the time are trusted by banks, microfinance institutions, to be able to provide guarantee to the people that need money. So we know that these groups are very powerful, and particularly here, as CARE, we are also keen on really making sure that this is not just saving groups that are coming together to empower women, because these are platforms for women to really increase their voices and demand for accountability in the community. But we also know that the government needs to look at how are these operating and how are they also contributing to the economy. And that's where we feel as government we can work together and really ensure that these ones are recognized. We have these models being adopted in Niger, in Mali. Our governments are really taking it up as saving groups that work. And so even here and across Africa, this is our message today, is that how do we make sure that the government is really understanding that these saving groups can be integrated in the national strategies for financial inclusion, because they know they help in bridging the gap, particularly for those who are